keeps saying that all of the Mets' decisions are being held up by this, and I've heard your interviews, and I know you're saying they're not, but I mean, realistically, it sounds like that's something a team would need to know in order to make some signings and figure out lineups and where people are going to play.
Yeah, look,
is there anything from the league about that?
Not really. I think that the DH is a function of negotiations between the Players Association and MLB. And so we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. But as far as we're concerned, look, it depends on where we add another player. But, right now in the outfield, we only have two legitimate outfielders, Conforto and Nimmo. In terms of frontline players, so we're going to have to do something there. Obviously, we can play Dominic Smith in left field. It's not ideal, nor is it ideal to have either Dominic or Pete Alonso on the bench while the other one's playing first base. So the DH is, it's an important issue for us, but it's not going to preclude us from doing what we need to do. For example, if we wanted to go out and sign a frontline center fielder, we're going to do that. And the DH situation, once it gets resolved, will either be really beneficial to us or a complication, but we'll deal with it at the time. So,
thank you.
Hello, Sandy. Hello, Sandy.
Yes.
Hi. Is it true that they're looking, I've heard this, that they're looking to use the DH as a bargaining chip? Like, let's say not have it in the National League this year and then use it as a bargaining chip for labor negotiations after the season?
I would guess that it's a bargaining chip, but I'm not sure it's a bargaining chip for 2022. I think it may be a bargaining chip for 2021 also.
Okay.
I mean, there's no resolution, between the players in MLB as, for example, as to, when we're going to start the season. I think everybody believes now we're going to start the season on time. We're going to be in spring training and we're going to go forward. But I think the DH is probably, being kicked around this year as well as potentially next year.
Thank you.
Might be traded for different things.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandy. Do you know if there's any timeline for fans back in the stands?
Well, there's no timeline, but we've got some operating assumptions. So right now, the first operating assumption is we're going to start spring training on time. The second assumption is that we're going to have sort of a limited number of players and maybe a delayed minor league spring training. We're assuming that we're going to have players, we're going to have fans in the stands in Florida, but to a very limited capacity. It might be 15 or 20%. There don't seem to be that many limitations in Florida related to the pandemic, so MLB might have to impose their own. But I'd say it's likely we start spring training on time. It's likely we play games, and it's likely we have some fans in the stands, but not full capacity. And the same would probably be true for games in New York. There are two overlays. One is what is the state and local government regulation, and those are going to be very different in Florida than they are in New York. And then the second is what is MLB going to do, sort of in the absence of those state and local regulations. So, if we start the season on, April 1st or whatever it is, we'll be subject to whatever restrictions exist in New York. We'll have to work that out with the city of New York and New York State. But also MLB may have some limitations that they feel are important, because it is, we want to protect the players so that we can protect the season. And so unfortunately we got to endure those limitations in order to, protect the season.
Good evening, Sandy.
Yes.
Yes, how you doing tonight? So, a couple of the gentlemen said we want to thank you. We feel that, you're taking us in that direction we want to go. My question to you is, what is that one last piece of puzzle you'd like to get taken before the season starts? What do you can really accomplish it? What's your last?
Extinguisher at police officer. Sources say at this point.
Well, I would say that we're more than a player or two away from.
Is that Sandy Alderson?
So, right now we've got a number of significant pieces that we've added. I think right now, and some of the players on this call, I see Chad Kreuter down there, can attest to the fact that it's more than just the star players. It's about the entire roster and the players that you also have available to you during the course of the season. And right now, that's an area where we're really focused, is trying to fill out not just the Major League roster, but the 40-man roster, as well as players that we can sign as minor league free agents and have available to us in Syracuse or an alternative site or whatever. So we're really focused right now on the depth more than anything else. We'll see what happens. I don't know what some players will decide. Whether they going to hold out for long-term contracts, shorter term, willing to take a smaller deal. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to be opportunistic, as they say. And I think we've tried to be that way so far. We took advantage of the chance to sign, like Trevor May. He was ready to sign early. So we said, okay, we'll do it. McCann was more ready to sign than Real Muto at the time. We said, we'll do it. Why? Because signing McCann preserved our options for later acquisitions. And I think that really played into, Lindor and Carrasco. So anyway, we're open-minded. I can't promise anything between now and beginning of spring training that, is monumental, but we'll see.
Sandy, I'm in Brooklyn and a season ticket holder for the Cyclones. Can you tell us what the future holds for them?
Yeah, well, first of all, the important thing is there is a future. Brooklyn's going to be a full season A club. And so instead of starting on June 15th or thereabouts, they'll be a full season club, high A. Our high A club used to be in Port St. Lucie. That will now be a low A club, but our high A will be in Brooklyn. And so, typically that season will start about the same time as the Major League season starts. This year, I think it's probably going to be delayed somewhat, but I think it's great for the Cyclones. I think it'll be a higher quality baseball, presumably, and a different league. It won't be, it won't be the New York Penn League any longer. It'll be a high league that kind of stretches a little bit north, because I think Hudson Valley will be in that league. But otherwise, I don't think any of the other New York Penn League's teams survive. So there'll be some trips further south, but I think it's going to be exciting for Brooklyn.
Thank you.
Joe D'Angelo, go ahead.
Hey, Sandy. First and foremost, welcome back to the organization. We're ecstatic, or for myself, to have you back, and more importantly, that your health is allowing you to be back. My question to you is, what minor leaguers are you looking to have contribute on the squad this year?
So the question is, what minor league players might contribute? Yeah, that's a good question. There's probably people on this call that could answer that better than I can. But there's no question that the strength of our minor league staff, our minor league system, at least in terms of, potential impact players, there are always guys that turn up, but is at the lower levels. And, the one thing we've tried to do this offseason, we traded a couple of prospects, unfortunately, but we've tried to protect the top 6, 7, 8. and we're not going to trade those. One of the things we have to do, we have to be a little more patient with our young players. I remember, when Nimmo was coming up, and he, took a little longer. He got injured. There was a variety of things, and it took him a while to get to the big leagues. And I said to somebody at the time, I said, well, look at the bright side. If he had gotten here as fast as, say, Conforto, he'd be gone already. So at least look at the bright side. That it took a little longer, but we still have him, and we still got at least a couple of years with Brandon. But I think we just have to be a little bit patient with our minor leaguers. So, at the top end, as I said, we're trying to fill in with some minor league free agents who, and typically guys that we can sign to a minor league contract. If they go on the major league roster, they have options, so they can go up and down as opposed to getting locked into somebody once you bring them to the big leagues. So, so keep an eye on the guys that that we continue to sign to minor league contracts, because they're probably some of the players who will appear in a Mets uniform during the season. By the way, speaking of signings, today's the international signing date, and that's all the players, the young players, primarily Dominican and Venezuela, who sign. And I think we signed 22 players today to contracts. So another new crop coming into the organization.
Sandy, is there an advantage of having all the minor league teams in New York?
I think there's an advantage to having all the minor league teams close by, and not close by to New York City per se, but within proximate range of each other, because moving players up and down is a lot easier, a lot less expensive. But I definitely think there's an advantage. We were in Las Vegas for a couple of years, and actually there were some benefits to that, but they were far outweighed by the fact that they were so far away that the playing environment was very different from New York. You had to make adjustments in terms of evaluation and so forth. So, having teams in the metropolitan area, as far away as Syracuse, but not that far, Binghamton, Brooklyn. I think the key thing is having affiliates where the facilities are good, the fans are supportive, and it's overall a good playing environment for the team. And that's true in most of our cases. Not all of them, but true in most of our cases. Syracuse, great place. Brooklyn, Port St. Binghamton, the facility there is not as great as it could be, but hopefully they're in the process of improving.
Sandy, hi.
Yeah.
Last year, Peterson was quite a surprise. He was really, really great in the rotation, and from what I see, he's expected to be in the rotation this year as well, as of right now at least. Tell me a little bit about what you see with him.
Well, I enjoyed watching him last year from afar. He was a late pick in the first round. I think maybe the same year we took Alonso. I don't know, 16, 17. Anyway, a very sort of polished guy coming out of college in Oregon. And because he's a lefty and because he has a really good slider, he turned out to perform really well. So let's hope that the smallish sample that we saw last year is.
Steve Lane, go ahead.
Him in the rotation.
Hey, Sandy, could you give us an update on Steven Matz? Everybody's kind of written him off, but I still believe in him. What are your thoughts?
Well, 2020 was kind of a disaster for Steven, but he's pitched well in the past, and we're hopeful that he will pitch well for us this season. I think that again, I'm not in his head. I wasn't with him last year, but probably his overall confidence needs to be reestablished. But that comes from, pitching well, having command of your pitches and so forth. So I'm hoping that, and the other thing is, hopefully the season is a little more stable. We're optimistic. We're not counting on Steven to win the first game of the World Series at this point, but he could develop back into that kind of pitcher as we get into spring training and early in the season. So we'll just have to see.
Hey, Sandy?
Oliver Perez still being successful as a lefty out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Thoughts to, having Steven work out of the bullpen just to see if he can get the feel back, because he seems to be able to put together 3 or 4 good innings, and then sometimes the wheels come off.
Well, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, that's the advantage. I mean, right now we don't have much left-handed in the bullpen. So, the possibility of him going there is certainly a possibility. But I think his best value to us, if we can get him back to where he's been in the past, is rotate.
I don't know why I don't have volume.
So,
Sandy, what do you see as Seth Lugo's role this year?
it's a good question. We could probably take a vote on this call as to whether he should be a reliever or a starter. And that might be as good an indication as any as to, what he ought to do. I mean, he's been successful as a reliever, but he's in the past, I go back to 2016 when he came up initially, he and he was a big factor in the last 2 months of the season when we got into the playoffs. So he's had some success as a starter also. I think if he's, given plenty of time to ramp up on the course, I think we have to decide what he's going to be before we start spring training. And sort of what I've said in the past is, we've added in the bullpen, which gives us a little flexibility to move in the rotation, but we've added in the rotation, which gives us more flexibility to push him back in the pen. So I think that the jury is still out, and we've got to just decide as an organization, because I know there are lots of opinions about this, where we think he fits best.
Sandy?
Good, Lou.
Yeah.
Sandy, can you hear me?
I can now, yeah.
Oh, great. I have a question. I saw some social media pictures of Citi Field. Is there the Tom Seaver statue being erected?
That's a work in progress, yes. And we hope that the statue is, placed at Citi Field sometime this season. It's really going to depend based on, when we start the season, how many fans we have in the park, and what the family desires. So, but definitely there will be a statue to Tom Seaver at Citi Field sometime in the near future.
That's great.
It's being, the statue itself is in progress. This is not just, a drawing or an idea or a promise. This is actually happening as we speak.
That's great. Well, welcome back, Sandy, and stay healthy.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, just a couple more questions, and then we'll let Sandy go, and then we'll continue on with all of your questions to me and the coaches. Anybody?
I have a question.
Sven?
Sandy.
Yes.
Hey, is there going to be the expanded playoffs again, or are they going back to the old playoffs?
I think MLB would like to have expanded playoffs. The question is whether they can get the Players Association to agree to that, because that's part of the discussion that's going on right now. I like the expanded playoffs. Number one, I don't really like the one and out, one game
Maybe we can
series for the wild card, but I don't know that they'll be, they might not be as expanded as they were this year. Maybe cut back a team in each league or something, but I think there will be there may be expanded playoffs next season. I think it's just a question of getting everybody to agree to that possibility.
Thanks.
Cindy, how do you plan out a season with Syndergaard? Do you assume he's not there, and then if he comes, you deal with it? Do you put? How do you address a guy who might be back for the second half?
That's a good question. I think that first of all, as the coaches on this team will attest. It's an old cliche, but you never have too much pitching, and there are very few teams that go through a season with just 5 or 6 starters. It just doesn't happen that often. If you're able to do that, you're probably going to be successful as a team. But so interestingly, right now he's scheduled to come back sometime in June. If we start the season on time, I think that could be a real benefit to us, because one of the issues going into 2021 is how many innings starting pitchers can throw coming off a season 2020 when they didn't throw that many. So, getting somebody who cranks up in June as opposed to April, could be a real benefit to a team, particularly if somebody of Syndergaard's ability. Could be a real benefit as you get into the second half of the season and have this kind of unknown with respect to your other starters. So I don't think we're going to have to overly plan for this. I think he's going to be, the cavalry arriving mid-season, and in that way will be a real asset to us without us having to, over-plan for when he arrives and who goes and what have you. Those things will take care of themselves.
Hi, Sandy. Hi. I wanted to ask, is there preparation by Major League Baseball to get everyone vaccinated before the beginning of spring training so you can stabilize and have safety in a 162-game season?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's also a good question. I think I think Major League Baseball is unwilling to appear to jump the line. I don't think Major League Baseball is looking for special accommodations from the government. And so, really, it's a matter of when the players and, many of us are eligible for the vaccine, and when is that eligibility? How does that merge with the beginning of the season or some point in the season? So I think that's going to impact. I don't think it may not impact the start of spring training or the start of the season, because it'll be in the bubble like it was last year. Right. And by the way, the other teams, all the other leagues are playing, so it's not like we'd be out there on an island. The NBA's playing, the NHL's playing, NFL's playing. They're all playing.
Sure.
So I think we have to hope that the season and the vaccine availability merge to the point where at some point, hopefully early in the season, if not sooner, but at some point, everybody does get vaccinated, and all the fans get vaccinated, so everybody can come to the ballpark.
Amen.
You just answered your question.
Will there be a DH next year, or?
You hear that, Sandy?
I can't hear that one.
He was asking, Eric Bashian's son was asking if there's going to be a DH next year.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
During interleague.
Yeah.
All right, let's do Howie Ritzer, and then let's close it for questions, and then we'll go ahead and
ask a question.
anything else.
I don't know if my video's on, Sandy. I'm actually driving home from work, but welcome back to the New York Mets organization. It must be, from everything I've heard from all these press conferences, the Zoom calls I was on with Steve Cohen, the thing he said most that hit me is that we're going to run the New York Mets as a big city organization like it's supposed to be, and you've already changed the top of that from day one and as soon as you guys took over. So, all these guys on this call and the coaches that I've met over these years and the fraternity we have in this club, there's none like other, and I appreciate you getting on this call and talking to us. But from your perspective, I know I've heard some of it. How much different is it to work back now in this organization from the time you left?
Well, I've tried not to make comparisons, but there's certainly differences, and I think the fans have a pretty good idea themselves of and have different expectations. So I think that the differences are becoming more and more evident, just based on what's happening, at least on the player side. So rather than getting into any comparisons, I just say it's very different, and I'm happy that the fans appreciate that, and look forward to the high expectations that have been created by Steve, and as they should be. He's been pretty straightforward about what he wants to accomplish, and it's up to us now to execute on that vision that he has. So we're all excited about it, and one of the benefits of this COVID thing is we've all gotten used to using Zoom calls, and so this is probably the first time I've had a chance to talk to any of you as a group, and so from that standpoint, this is a big improvement. I know you miss being on the field, but at least it's nice that there's this alternative that we have for us.
Hey, Sandy, quick question before you go.
Yeah.
Old Timers Day, is there plans for that? I'm hearing something about.
I think I think that Old Timers, Banner Day, all of those things are in play, and for 2021, I think the question is how many of these special events can we cram into what may be an abbreviated season, but that's definitely on the agenda. And part of what I said earlier about making the alumni a bigger part of the organization and what we do. So
awesome.
And lastly, I just want to before I get off, I want to thank all the coaches who are on here. I don't have pictures of everybody, but I know that a variety of people are on. I don't know if Guy Connie's on, but some of the other guys that I've not known personally, but have followed during their careers. And anyway, appreciate the work that you guys do in creating not only a great experience at the camp, but the camaraderie that's obviously expressed in this group. So thank you for that. And thanks, Doug, for
Doug's the best, baby.
Together.
Hey, thanks, Sandy.
All right, guys.
Thank
Take care.
you, Sandy.
All right, guys. Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate it.